Hey guys, I am so glad you are here. I can't believe we are almost at the end of November already. I'm telling you, time is flying by. Today, we are going to be diving into the world of social interactions, communication, and the ways that can help students build meaningful relationships and navigate those lovely social awkward situations with confidence. You won't want to miss this episode, so listen in. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class. I am Diane Bachman, your behavior paraprofessional with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I'm so glad you're here because I'll be teaching you about social emotional learning, behavior strategies, trauma-informed care, and more. So if you are tired of being frustrated and not knowing what to do with your students who have challenging and disruptive behavior, you're in the right place. Now, if you're ready to become more equipped to help your students learn and grow, let's listen in to today's episode. A couple more things before we get started. Please leave a review wherever you are listening to this episode and hit that subscribe button. Share this episode with other educators where they can learn and grow as well. And join my Facebook group, Behavior Strategies for Class. There are a lot of amazing educators there where you can learn and encourage each other as you go through this walk with your students. So, our students seem to struggle the most with being flexible and some boundaries. Now, flexible is hard, especially for some students that have autism, because they are very focused. And sometimes it's that flexibility, like if they're working on, even just a worksheet and the time is up and now they need to do a transition. Some of our students have really struggled with stopping in the middle of that worksheet and moving on, where they're just focused like this is what we started, like we need to finish this has to get done, we need to finish. And teaching them like, it's okay, we will come back to that, but right now we have to transition over here. And that is definitely really hard for some students that have autism, but just showing them and following through on what we say. So if we say, okay, after lunch, we're going to finish this, we have to make sure that we do that. And of course, they will remind us of that because they remember those things. And so being flexible is really important to teach because we live in a world where not everything goes as planned and different things come up. And so we have to pivot and do something else or, put that down and go over here. So that is definitely a life skill as well, is being able to be flexible. Another social skill that our students struggle with is boundaries. Personal space, especially. Like there is no personal space. But of course, we want to be teaching that to them because they're going to get older, they're going to get bigger, their peers are getting older, they're going to get bigger, and they're not going to appreciate when you come up in their face and not even being like rude. You just want to ask a question or you're curious about something and they just come straight up in your face and want to ask you this. And you could be in the middle of a conversation, or even if you're not, the next thing you know, they are right there. And so learning, teaching them like, buddy, personal space. And then if you see me talking to someone, you have to learn to wait your turn, and then I will speak to you, or sometimes it's even, our kids are super sweet, and so they just want to come give hugs. And of course, I love hugs, and I love being able to give them to students. But we need to model for them, like, we need to be asking to give a hug. I've worked with not only some of our students, but, some of our gen ed students, and I can tell, like, they're upset. And of course, my first reaction is to come alongside and give big hugs. And I have learned for myself that I need to ask them, like, do you want a hug? And sometimes they say no. And so I respect that and just listen. Or if they just want to be by themselves, then, I have to respect what they need and what they desire at that moment. Even though in my heart, I feel like a hug, fixes everything. So they should be getting hugs. But that is a boundary we have to teach our students, especially those who love to hang all over you, and, they're comfortable with you. We just have to have those boundaries. This is our society that we're in. And, you want to be above reproach, and you want to be setting that standard and modeling that for your students. So that if if a student comes up to you and asks you for a hug, it's okay for you as the teacher, as the adult in the room, to say, no, not right now. And I have done that. And most of the time it's because that student was just being, either rude, disruptive, disrespectful, and, they just want to be cute and get a hug. Well, no, now's not the time. No, thank you. Of course, there is a time and a place for hugs and for giving, for having that closeness and that conversation. But we have to teach our students to have those personal boundaries, because not everybody likes people up in their face. I don't. Even a couple of teachers I worked with in the past, I don't know what it is, but they just wanted to be right up close in my face. And every time I would be backing up, like, I can hear you. Like, it's okay. You don't need to be right in my face. And no, I didn't say anything. And I know that's like that awkward situation. I would just back up. I didn't really say personal space, which I probably could have or should have, but I didn't. But anyways, so it's teaching your students, and especially, at the young age, for them to respect other people's boundaries. And that's just one example of a boundary, is that personal space. That's really important too. And again, that's a life skill, for their future jobs, their future, schooling. They need to know, like, you can't just come up and interrupt when you think you have something to say, or you just want to give somebody, a high five or maybe a side hug or something. You can't do that. There's a time and a place, and learning what that is, begins when they're young. And so teaching those are really important. So one of the things, social skills that I wanted to talk about today, is active listening. And of course, that's very hard for some of us adults, as well as your students. But what is active listening? So active listening is letting others speak without interruptions, asking questions, making eye contact, and then summarizing what that person said so that there's an understanding there. I definitely do not always summarize when people talk to me, like, what they've said, but it is a great habit to get into. And I have seen like counselors do that, and I have seen other educators do that. And I really feel like the students feel really heard when you can repeat back like what they said. So that is a really key skill to have. So active listening, and of course, letting people speak without interrupting them is really hard as well, because we want to share what we just thought of while you were speaking, and we don't want to wait until you finish in order to share what we have. And so that is a really hard skill, but again, definitely something worth doing and worth learning, and no better time than the present to work on that. And making that eye contact. I know some students struggle with that. They're not confident, or unfortunately, some students have been through trauma and there's been abuse there. And so they're very uncomfortable making eye contact. So sometimes we just kind of start out slow. And it's a reassurance for them to know, like, we're not going to hurt you. We're here to help you. We want to listen to you. You know, we're trying to show you whatever it is, whatever work that they're working on. You know, we want them to know like they're in a safe place. And if they can only look in your eyes for a second or a few seconds, then we take that and then we just build on that. And their confidence really does grow. I have seen that happen over and over again. And even one of my son's friends, when he lived with us for a while, he's like, I can't look you in the face. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so I taught him, like, you know, I would appreciate if you talked to me that you would look at me. And so it did start out slow, and eventually he did. And we were able to have conversations and look at each other and really engage that way. And that's a great way to connect as well, getting that eye contact. So the second social skill that will help your classroom succeed is respecting those boundaries. And this even goes for you as the teacher in the classroom, having those boundaries, even just for your space. And that's not only your personal space, but like where your desk is, where you have your bookshelf, where you have, you know, your cabinets or whatever it is. I know you have your own personal area in your classroom, and teaching your students, like, nothing over here is for you to touch at all. Whether it's on your desk, next to your desk, behind your desk, whatever it is. And we have that same boundary in our classroom as well. We have a few different behavior paras plus our teacher, and so we have our teacher space is what we call it, and the students are not allowed back behind our desks. And so if they want to, or there's something they need, they have learned that they come and ask before they go back there, or, you know, one of us gets whatever it is that they need. And so I know in your classroom that you have that personal area where there should be boundaries for your students not to be in that space. And I'm sure that even goes for, you know, whatever cabinets or, you know, different supplies and things like that. Like, these are the boundaries. Like, maybe you don't want them going in those spaces whenever they feel like it. And that really is a personal preference, because I've been in other classrooms and things are labeled, and if they need something, the student just goes up and gets it and goes, you know, on with their work. So obviously it works either way. It's whatever your preference is and what you're comfortable with. And that's organization too. So students know where things are, and that kind of lessens your load where they don't have to ask you every 5 seconds where whatever it is that they need, how can they get it? Where can they get it? And, all of those things. So again, those kind of personal space boundaries is whatever you're comfortable with. Another boundary I've seen teachers is if a student needs their attention, they do not talk to them when they come up to them and they, tap them on the shoulder, or they pull their sleeve, or they stand like right in front of them or right behind it, She just reminds them, like, how do you get my attention? And that student goes back to their desk and raises their hand. And that is a great boundary, because otherwise, otherwise you're standing there forever answering all these little questions and nothing's getting done, because they know they can just get up and come talk to you at any time. And so setting those boundaries in your classroom. Another boundary students have, had to learn is keeping their hands to themselves. And that's not only for hugs, it's for punches and squeezes and chokes and, all that other stuff. So we definitely are constantly reminding, keep your hands to yourself, please. Or it's just hands to self. We just remind them, hands to self. No thank you, hands to self. And most of the students, they know what that means. And if not, obviously we will tell them, and we model that for them. So another social skill that will give your classroom success is teaching your students flexibility. Like I said, some of our students really struggle with that, and it is a hard one, especially when you get back to school, you're back in the swing of things. The students know your schedule now, and for some reason, you have to be absent that day, or that special had to change, or you have a special speaker come in and now there's an assembly, or you have a fire drill that was not planned and everybody has to be out, and so now you can't do this special thing that you thought you had time for, and that the students were super looking forward to doing, but now you're not able to do it because something else has come up. And this is flexibility, because they have to learn this is life. Things happen. We plan, we organize, we get things, situated to where we want to be, but sometimes that just does not work out. So what are we going to do? Are we all just going to sit in the corner and cry? Sit in the corner and scream and yell and kick our feet? And, sometimes, yes, that sounds fabulous. I would love to do that. But obviously that is not the modeling that we want for your students. So an example is, of course, it's technology, right? Some people I know have the smart boards. Some teachers don't. You have the overhead, even just your computer isn't loading, the clicker isn't working, all of these fun technology things. And you had this beautiful lesson laid out on your laptop, and now you can't get to that PowerPoint or whatever it is. So now what do? So you pivot and you either go on to something else, or you just draw on the whiteboard whatever it is you need to do. And so verbalizing what is happening and what you're doing, I think really it reiterates what you're trying to teach them. So for like that example, and you could say, okay, guys, so our, overhead isn't working. We can't get the computer to load up. This is where we have to be flexible and we have to figure out how to do this lesson a different way. And so I think this way is going to be a good way as well. So this is, we're being flexible, we're changing and pivoting over here and doing something else. And so just kind of pointing that out is a great way to model that skill for them. And you show that, you didn't freak out. Even though some teachers they haven't freaked out, but, they've just said, like, I'm very frustrated because I spent all this time getting this ready and blah, blah, blah. And now I can't do it. And, I'm just really mad at this moment. And, it's okay. This shows again that you're human and you're not throwing a fit. You're not chucking chairs across the room. You're just taking a minute and then like, okay, well, now we're going to do this instead or do the same thing a different way. And so we're just being flexible and we're going to switch and do this instead. I think that is such a great way. And I have seen many teachers model this for their students and it really works. And like I said, when you can point it out for them and say, you know what, guys, we are being flexible right now because this happened that we weren't planning on, but we're just going to go with it and we're being flexible and this is great. And this is how we're going to learn this today. It just makes it so much easier when you can have that open, clear communication with your class. And I think that works really from kinder, whether kinder really gets it either, say first, all the way up through high school. Because you're just being real and modeling that for them. And that just involves them and gives them value that you have taken the time to show them that. I think that is so huge. So another social skill that is going to help your classroom be successful is, I know your favorite one, of following directions. One way, well, there's a lot of different ways that teachers get their students' attention so that they can give those directions, those instructions. From shutting off the lights to clapping hands to saying whatever phrase you want to ringing a bell to we used to use the easy button to setting a timer, all kinds of ways that you can get your students' attention and give those directions. But the thing is holding your students accountable to those directions and then checking that they understand those directions. And majority of teachers that I have worked with, they are great at doing that. Okay, so who can repeat to me what I just said? Or who can tell me what you need to do next? Having them repeat those directions, and maybe a few people repeat them back, then you know that they understand what needs to be done. And granted, you may still have a couple students who just not understanding. And that's where I have seen them go to their peers and ask their peers, what should I be doing now? Or can you help me do this? Or where was I supposed to go? And having the peers help them. So that you're not always the only one who can answer the questions, because that just empowers the rest of the class to be confident and encourage their classmate that way. I know another way is that teachers are really working on, having students follow directions the first time. And granted, that would be amazing if all classes were like that. And granted, It may not get there, but that is something to strive for because you know your students are capable. For the most part, they can all listen and follow directions. And holding them accountable makes them responsible. And so you are teaching them, again, all of these are life skills. Skills that will help them in their life. This is what we call life skills. Not only like cooking, like cleaning, doing laundry. When I was in a different special needs classroom, these are the life skills that we would teach. But these social skills are life skills also because they are how we interact with each other. And that interactions are starting in the classroom. And so you are helping that foundation for your students. And as they build on these skills, they will be a very functioning, productive adult. And that is our goal. One adult who is striving and learning and growing constantly to be better, to do better, to help society, to make a difference, to love learning. So, a quick recap. The social skills that will help your classroom be successful is that active listening, respecting boundaries, being flexible, and following directions. So, a quote I love by Dr. Bruce Perry is, "The more healthy relationships a child has, the more likely he will be to recover from trauma and thrive. Relationships are the agents of change, and the most powerful therapy is human love." And this is what you're creating in your classroom, a community of love, safety, and healthy relationships for your students. So also, before we leave, what social skill are you going to help your students improve on? Will it be that active listening, where they're not interrupting every 5 seconds, where they're learning to ask questions, make eye contact? Or is it that respecting boundaries, learning to keep their hands out of other people's stuff? Or is it learning to be flexible? Or is it those following directions? What social skill will you be helping your students to improve on? Send me a DM and let me know. What social skill are you going to be helping your student improve on? I would love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.